charity for two main reasons. Firstly, to take the burden of finding people to give zakah, to take on that burden from those people that need to pay zakah, and secondly, to ensure that those who are eligible, they receive the zakah as well. We live in a time and a place where there are lots of people upon whom zakah is obligatory, and there are also lots of people who are eligible to receive zakah. They're the poor and the needy. But those two groups of people, either they don't meet, or when they meet, then it's hard to identify those that are poor and needy, and they themselves don't like themselves to be known. And this is where the charity comes in. We're here to bridge that gap, take the zakah from those that need to pay and give it to those that need it. Our primary geography of distribution is the UK. We'd like to collect from donors in the UK and to distribute it out to also to recipients in the UK. But also, when the opportunity arises, we'll also help with disaster relief and emergency aid abroad as well. Like for example, this year we had we'd like to see them as promises to you as our audience. And these policies are what we need to act by as a charity. The first one, to collect and distribute zakah in strict accordance with the Islamic law. The law of principle, the school of choice is the Hanafi school, primarily because we expect most of our donors and recipients to be from this school. But to facilitate ease for either the donors or the recipients or even the charity, we may also take opinions from the other three schools. And of course, all of this will be with consultation and guidance from our resident scholars, Sheikh Harun and Sheikh Ibrahim. We also have 100% zakah donation policy. And this means that every pound of zakah that we receive from you, that will reach an eligible recipient. We can't use zakah funds for our running costs or for our salaries or for any other charitable endeavor that doesn't qualify for zakah. And finally, we will distribute zakah funds as soon as possible without any unnecessary delay. Seven Wells is not something brand new here. It's really continuing the good work that Greensville Trust has been doing over the past 10 years and more. In the local sphere, Greensville has been feeding the homeless, aiding refugees, aiding asylum seekers, and sponsoring students of sacred knowledge in the UK and abroad. And also in the national sphere, we've been working in partnership with other national charities and educational institutions. We have also internationally distributed zakah and sadaqah money to other countries like Yemen and Mauritania and Indonesia, and we do this on a regular basis. Seven Wells is here really just to formalize that process, take it to the next stage and grow the charitable activity as the charitable arm of Greensville Trust, inshallah. Our services are not just limited to collection and distribution of zakah, however. In the first 12 months, we've put together a basic infrastructure to be able to collect and distribute zakah, and that's what we've been doing over the past 12 months. And we'll talk more about that later. But we'd also like to develop an education service where we teach the Muslim community, Muslims, about zakah, the third pillar of Islam, what their obligations are, by delivering seminars and lectures and fiqh classes, also offering one-to-one zakah surgeries with our ulama here, who can help individuals calculate their zakah. We'd also like to take it to the next phase after that and build a network of enterprise support. And this is where we help individuals that are poor and in need to break out of the cycle of poverty, whereby they don't need to ask for zakah every month, or they don't need to ask for zakah every year, but rather if we train them with skills that allow them to get a job and become self-sustaining and earn an income for themselves. Or we can give them microfinance, where they can invest some money into an enterprise or a business and start earning some money for themselves, and inshallah one day get to the point where they're giving zakah themselves into this charity and other charities. It's important to understand that as a charity, we're not here to compete for charitable space with other charities. But rather it's quite the opposite. We want to work together with other charities to achieve a common goal. Some of the charities that we've worked with in the past have been Muslim Hands and Ar-Rafa Foundation and Penny Appeal. These I'm sure are familiar to many of you already. It's really easy to apply for zakah, really easy. You can go to the website sevenwells.org.uk. On the menu there's a zakah application page. Go onto the page, download the zakah application form. If you fill in the form and send it back to info@sevenwells.org.uk, and we'll take it from there. So if there's anybody sitting here today and you know somebody who's in need of zakah, then please spread the message of 7 Wells to them. Ask them to apply for zakah, help them to apply for zakah if they need. And if anybody is struggling with using the internet or using email, then please request an application form, a paper application form from the office as well, and we can and return a paper application form back to the office after it's been completed. Even if you're sitting here and you think you're eligible for zakah, please apply. We can help determine your eligibility and help you with whatever funds you need from zakah, inshallah. It is equally easy also to give zakah to 7 Wells. Again, the easiest way is to go onto the website 7wells.org.uk and follow the payment instructions. This year we're running 2 main appeals. The main appeal being the Yemen appeal, for which we're collecting zakah and sadaqah. And Brother Yasrab is going to talk to us more about that later on. There's also the prisoner appeal, which is for which we're just taking sadaqah only. And this is an important appeal. We're basically trying to provide a suhoor meal and an iftar meal to approximately 200 inmates around the country, Muslims that are fasting in our prisons. A lot of you will know some of the timetables this month. They're giving us a 20-hour fast. That's a long fast, and the prison service provide a basic suhoor and basic iftar for these Muslims that are fasting in the prisons. So for them to really manage and be able to fast in a good way throughout the month, they need a good quality meal, inshallah, that we're planning to provide. And we also don't want them to forget that we don't want them to think that we have forgotten them. They're away from their families, they're away from their friends. We don't want them to think that we have forgotten them, the Muslim Ummah has forgotten them. So please donate your sadaqah generously to this appeal as well. In review, the first 12 months ending this Ramadan, we have focused on the collection and distribution of zakah, as I mentioned. We've put together a basic infrastructure that allows us to take in donations and also distribute zakah, process zakah applications and distribute them out to the eligible. This year we've collected more than £67,000, and more zakah money is coming in day by day, alhamdulillah, and we have distributed £60,000 of zakah as well. In the UK we've given £24,000 to more than 30 individuals. A lot of the applicants have been local to Liverpool, some have been a bit further afield from Manchester and nearby areas, and some even further afield from Luton and Dublin and Belfast. Just some cases that come to mind, because the last 12 months have been quite eye-opening for me. The poverty and the need in the community has been worse than I ever imagined. We've had some cases of asylum seekers, families of asylum seekers, a lady with a family of 3 children, 2 of which have health problems, and they are fighting for their sort of status to remain in the UK. They're between benefits, so they've got very little income, and they're moving from one council house to another. The new house doesn't have any carpets, no curtains, no appliances, no furniture. So they need money to be able to make that house into a home for them, and also put some clothes on the children's backs so they can wear uniform and go to their schools. So we've helped them in these cases. There have been other cases where an elderly lady was reliant on a medical chair to help her get up and about and provide some mobility in her life. Her chair broke, and we were able to give her some zakah funds, some £500 or £600 to help her buy another chair and keep her quality of life sustained. We've also supported students of sacred knowledge in the micro madrasa and also abroad, and this is just in the UK. We've sent £10,000 to Mauritania as well. We've sent £21,000 to Indonesia, and we've sent £5,000 to Yemen. The next 12 months for 7 Wells are really important, because what we're looking to do is we're looking to embed the key infrastructure to grow the organisation. We want to receive twice as many or even 3 times as many donations, and we need to be able to process them in an efficient and smooth manner. We also want to receive 3 times as many zakah applications, and we need to process them in an efficient manner. We want to expand our reach so more people know about 7 Wells, so they can give their zakah to us and their sadaqah to us. We want more people to know about 7 Wells so they can apply for zakah from us as well if they're poor and needy. We also want to build our education service so we can start putting question banks on our websites, and we can start delivering zakah workshops to increase the knowledge of zakah within our communities. But to do all this, we need your help, because 7 Wells up until now in the last 12 months has been running on volunteers only. Everybody has been doing their work free of charge, from the build of the website, the development and build of the website, to the administration behind the scenes, to the panel that assesses the zakah cases, to the individual caseworkers that go and meet the poor and needy in the local community and understand more about them and what they need and how we can help them. All of that has been done by volunteers. Going forward to grow, however, we're looking to employ a charity administrator. This will be a position that, we're working on the full definition of the role, but roughly we're expecting a salary of £25,000. And we need to fundraise this because we can't use zakah funds for this position. We're looking to yourselves to share your zakah. If you have zakah to give in this month or any other month, please give some of it to Seven Wells. If you don't have zakah to give, find some zakah to give and give it to Seven Wells so we can help grow the organisation and take it to the next level and be able to fund this permanent position and employed position in the charity, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair to Brother Mubarak, inshallah, for the update on Seven Wells. Mashallah, that's, as you can see, in the space of 1 year, that's a lot of money that's coming, but also a lot of money that's been distributed nationally and internationally. Quickly moving on, inshallah, we're just going to have another update on one of the previous appeals from this year, which was on Indonesia. And we're going to have Brother Amr Sadiq, who's one of the local brothers from Warrington, and also the former Fatua champion of Turkey. Current? I thought it was close. Inshallah, he's going to come up, mashallah. He's one of our field agents, we can say, inshallah ta'ala, that goes out and assesses some of these cases. But he's going to give us an update as he led a delegation to Indonesia, inshallah, just an update on the Indonesian appeal, inshallah.
What we can see down here is Palu, the city of Palu, which is centered in the valley here at the end of the bay. Yeah. And on both sides of the bay, if we go further up north, we have main roads. Here, once we get down here, this is the city of Palu. Yeah. And then you see the fault line will go straight through the city, down past my village on my side. Yeah. So everything else was a secondary effect. Maybe earthquakes spreading out from the epicenter of the fault. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened is you have very intense areas. Yeah. This area is really intense, but you can't say that this is the center and then it was less intense over here. It wasn't like that at all. It was like this area is really intense. Over here was really intense.
Yeah,
over there was really intense. Over there was really intense.
It was very random.
That whole area on the beach, all the way around the beach there, everything is gone. Yeah.
Yang saya lihat tidak seperti tsunami yang biasa kita lihat di Jepang, di mana nih, di Aceh, tidak. Tsunami yang air yang terbentuk di sini tidak seperti di Aceh. Kalau di Aceh itu dia dari jauh dia datang, tapi di sini tidak. Dia terbentuk di tengah-tengah sini. Dia terbentuk di sini, terbentuk di sana, terbentuk begitu.
Ya.
Dan yang terjadi di sini tsunami Bukan dia cuma datang ke depan sana, tapi dia dari samping pukul samping begini. Ayo ke sana begitu. للبيوت خاص للبيوت هنا.
And how many homes were here? How many?
lebih alaf وزيادة mungkin.
Sheikh's also mentioned as well that the people who you can see here now in front of your eyes here who are wandering around, they're either looking for scrap metal they can take to sell to make a livelihood, or they're looking for things that you can use maybe to build their own houses. This is the harsh reality of life. You spend a lifetime building for it to be destroyed in a second. This is a classic example of it.
شوف البيوت الطبقتين هذا داخل واحد.
Alhamdulillah, we have a young man here whose family used to live here. We were just asking his family who lived there what's happened to them, what happened?
Kakak dan yang anak-anak kemana kan? Pertama dari kebakaran, terus tanah goyang, rumah-rumah langsung ke bawah semua. Jadi rumah cuma nyatu, 2 rumah yang sebelah menyebar langsung bawah. Mereka semua di dalam.
How many survivors?
Berapa banyak orang yang selamat di tempat ini?
Kalau itu masih mau diangkat karena belum ini masih banyak yang belum bisa diangkat, yang selamat juga kita bagi-bagi. Jadi yang pastinya belum
pasti.
Ya. Belum ketahuan pasti.
Kira-kira berapa banyak penduduk yang
Kalau
ada di
yang diprognosis sementara ini yang untuk 5.000, 5 sampai 7.000.
As Ustad Amr mentioned, I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the trip to Indonesia. It took place on the 3rd to the 8th of November last year. So after the tsunami, the earthquakes took place on the 28th. We went out, Sheikh Ibrahim Mashallah sent us out just over a month afterwards. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Holy Quran, chapter 63, Surah Munafiqun, verse 10, and spend in charity out of the provision we have given you before death overtakes any of you, and he should say, "Oh my Lord, why did you not respite me for a little while, so that I might have given alms and have been of the well-doers?" And Rasulullah narrates, we've heard this hadith so many times, charity obliterates sins just as it extinguishes fire. So on the second, it was basically a 5-6 day trip. 3 of us, mashallah, went to Indonesia. Brother Hassan, mashallah, Brother Mansour and myself, and the remit was to really go out there and really carry out an assessment of the situation there, and to look at where what really happened. So you can see a map there. That's basically Indonesia. Indonesia is just a plethora of islands, but this tsunami, the earthquakes, took place in a place called Central Sulawesi, and the main I guess location there was a site called Palu. Also another location called Donggala as well. It was a 7.5 magnitude earthquake. It was a serious earthquake. Just to give you an idea, whilst we were out there, between when we went and the earthquake happened and when we went out there, dozens and dozens of other earthquakes had taken place, but on a much lower scale. So 7.5 was a major earthquake. What were the objectives? One, as I mentioned, was to understand the situation. We actually went with zakat money. I just saw in Mubarak's presentation, we took £21,000 with us, so basically £7,000 each we took with us out there to distribute, and I'll talk about this. And then also was to really assess the needs out there going forward as well. What was required going forward? Because Sheikh Ibrahim mentioned to his mashallah, it wasn't just about going out there, seeing the situation and giving money. It's also about how we can support them, inshallah, going forward, how we can help. So what really happened, we've heard of the earthquake phenomena. Over recent years, we've heard of tsunamis. What's a tsunami? Tsunami is something Basically, it's an earthquake that takes place in the sea, and the effects of that water that rushes out causes devastation. And then one term we came across that I'd never heard of before was something called liquefaction. Now, and I'll never forget the time when we arrived in Palu, and we were being taken by our guide, mashallah, there. And they just kept to mention everything was liquid. There was liquid everywhere. There was liquid everywhere. And we couldn't understand. He said the ground became liquid. And when we then started to research this a bit more, basically liquefaction is where you have soft ground where there's a lot of water underneath. And when an earthquake takes place, that water basically starts moving upwards, and the whole ground becomes liquid. And this is why, when what we saw out there was basically sites had moved and had disappeared. We went to one location where we came to the stop of an edge, basically, and said, in front of you here was a village of people living here. And what happened was that village was now 2 kilometers down the road and had submerged. What we now saw in front of us was bizarre. You saw palm trees, you saw trees. And those trees, he said, were 2 kilometers that way, to the left, and they just moved along. You saw in the video there where a Muslim, mashallah, his family just disappeared. There's one narration that we heard whilst we were out there where this is a very wealthy individual, mashallah. He was a billionaire in Indonesia Rupiah. And he said, I just saw my family disappear in front of me. And he said, all the loans I had given to people, I've wiped them all clear. I have nothing myself. And we were giving him zakat. And he was crying and he said, I'm going to use this money now to build the masjid and to rebuild my community. And he's seen his family disappear. There's so many stories we can talk about, we saw it out there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wills what He wills, does what He does, and this was just another instance of something new, liquefaction, that we never heard of before. So the emergency situation was over. It was really we're in what we call the rebuilding phase. Thousands of lives have been lost. People were still looking, even when we went out there 6 weeks afterwards, people were still looking for family members. They were still coming back to sites on a day-by-day basis, just to move more rubble, see if they could find anybody. And what we realised there was that significant funds are still needed going forward to rebuild the communities. And what was really mentioned was that whilst the major areas had received funding and had received aid, the areas further afield, because this was a very random event that took place. There were earthquakes here, earthquakes there, etc., etc. They were taking place all over the place, but you couldn't see, for example, a whole site that had just been destroyed. Maybe saw buildings had been destroyed, some buildings were intact, etc. So really, we were being told that there were places further afield that were really in need of aid going forward. So whilst we were out there, we gave, mashallah, we spent a lot of time packaging up money, and we hand distributed aid to zakat to people. And this is your money basically being delivered by hand. And Sheikh was very specific about this. You have to distribute zakat with your own hands to people. And alhamdulillah, this is what we achieved. Over 800 families have received zakat. That's your money, mashallah, that you've given. That was rightfully theirs. So how are we helping now? We've started now another initiative, which is the Indonesian Orphan Sponsorship Project. And it's basically a 5-year commitment, inshallah. And again, Habib Aydrus, mashallah, he was a person in one of the videos beforehand. He was an incredible guide for us. And he's an incredible guide, no doubt, because of the people he's connected to, mashallah. He's a student of Habib Muhammad Hafizullah, mashallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve them. And he set up a madrasa there. And what we're doing, just to be very brief, is that the cost for the first year is £900 per student. Inshallah, we're in the process of sending now £5,000 for the first 5 students. And the beautiful thing about this project is that he himself already has an orphanage where he teaches children. He's going to go into the camps and choose some children basically to bring back to his orphanage, and he will teach them. And then what he does, mashallah, which is really beautiful, is that of those orphans, he then chooses the best orphans every single year and sends 2 to Tarim to study there in Darul Mustafa, and he funds all that himself, mashallah. So what we're aiming to do here is, inshallah, we're sending this money now. Then going forward, that's the £900 for 5 students, each student, and then inshallah going forward, there's going to be a cost of £600 for per student per year. So if anybody, inshallah, wants to take on the sponsorship, wants to orphan, wants to take on the responsibility, should we say, of sponsoring an orphan over the next 5 years, please inshallah contact one of the team, one of the Seven Worlds team inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Jazakallah khair to Brother Amir, mashallah. We're reminded of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who mentioned that the body of the believers is like one body. The corpus of the believers is like one body. Whenever one part feels pain, the entire body feels pain. Despite we've seen this video a number of times by Brother Amir, and every time we see it, no doubt our hearts feel pain, and towards our brothers and sisters in Indonesia, inshallah. So if anyone can aid in that project, please be in contact with the team, inshallah. Right now we're just going to move to an update on another project right now, which is the Yemen appeal. As you know, for a number of years now, Greensville Trust, it's actually been over a decade now, has been sending money abroad to Yemen. Before we begin, inshallah, can we save that till after my presentation? Okay. What is this? Okay,